thank you for joining us. As a club, we worked hard to give players during this coronavirus things to do to stay sharp. As three of you guys being pro players, what have you been doing for the last 2-3 months to do the work that you need to do in order when season starts, you're kind of firing all cylinders? Foster, why don't you share with us first?
Hi, everybody. I'm Foster. So I come up with a schedule, kind of like a routine. And involves just two things. The first thing I do is I run 2 miles every day. I wake up at 7 a.m. to do it. There's a track right next to my apartment. So I do that first thing in the morning. And then I get 1,000 touches on a ball minimum every day. So those are the two things I will always do.
Okay, Niko?
For me, it's a little different. I've been injured the last year, so I'm still kind of rehabbing. Basically, right now, it's just control what you can control. So I'm doing every little thing to make sure when I come back that I'm 100%. So everything from my diet to doing every program my medical staff is sending me. So usually it's like an hour to an hour and a half of strengthening my foot and my injury, and then just working on my diet. So that's pretty much all I've been doing.
Perfect. Brent?
Yeah, so playing down in Reno now. I'm Brent, by the way. Foster and I are down in Reno this year, and we have a strength and conditioning coach that's been helping us out through this. And he sends us a schedule every week of everything we need to do as far as a fitness standpoint. So 6 days a week, we're running, 3 days a week, we're lifting. So that varies between different sprint workouts and different longer runs, different sort of intervals and stuff. And it's just kind of on yourself to stay motivated and stay dedicated to doing it each day. So it's, I mean, if you want it bad enough, then you do it, right? And as far as getting touches on it, it's tough not being able to play with your friends and your teammates right now. And so I've just been trying to get touches on my own, going to a park by myself. And it's actually something that when I was your age, I'd do a lot. I'd ride my bike and take 3-4 balls over a park and just kick it at the goal all day by myself. So kind of taking me back to old times right now.
Perfect, Brett. That kind of leads into our next question. I know you guys were multi-sport athletes. What really connected you to soccer? What made you fall in love with soccer at a young age? Brent, why don't we start with you first?
I mean, growing up in Camas, everybody played soccer. I have a brother that's 3 years older than me, and he and all of his friends played. And so it's just something that everybody did from a young age. I think I started when I was 4 or 5. So liked it right away. And I liked going to my practices. And thankfully, my brother had coaches that would let me come to their practices as well. And so I couldn't get enough of it. So I was playing every chance I could get.
Foster?
My dad was an army brat. So he grew up in Germany for a part of his life. And when he came back to the U.S., he didn't like any other sports, specifically baseball. So I wasn't really allowed to play any other sports. So, and I mean, I also love soccer. So sure.
Niko?
For me, it was more like a family thing. All my siblings and I, that was like every weekend. Every weekend, it was just a soccer weekend. So it was just kind of like a family thing and what I stuck with and what we all stuck with throughout college.
Bineam, you're on mute. Bineam, you're on mute, man.
Are you doing that, Robin?
No.
All right. Can you hear me? What were you guys doing at that young age to kind of set yourself apart from other youth players? What were you doing on your own base?
I mean,
go ahead.
Like I said, I was going to my practices and I was going to my brother's practices as well. And thankfully, my parents were super, super supportive of all of us playing soccer. And so I would try and get on as many indoor teams as possible too. In the wintertime, I'd be at Clark County Indoor Sports Center like 4 or 5 days a week, even if it was just playing around outside the field. So I just couldn't get enough of it. And on those days when I wasn't there with the team thing, I was at Prune Hill Park just kicking around by myself. So I also was lucky that at my parents' house they had this big retaining wall that I could just blast balls at all day long if I wanted to. So
Foster?
Kind of similar to Brent. Like I just played a lot more than my teammates did. I mean, mainly because I loved it though as well. I really enjoyed competing, whether I was winning or losing. I always just thought I should be winning. So it would just keep me on the field and it'd make me keep playing. For love of the game, I grew up playing at Nautilus every day with my friends a lot. So Niko was there. It was great beating up on him. It was a lot of fun. I played it because I enjoyed it. I kind of just like fed into itself because, you know, the kind of the better you get, the more fun it is to do.
So I got a Foster story for you. So he's known for his work ethic is phenomenal. He lived just a few blocks from me, in the summer it'd be 90 degrees. What's that hill? Ellsworth Hill. I see him, it's a quarter of a mile straight up. I see him running and running. I mean, it was just tremendous the amount of work he did. Also a little bit, he's a self-driven person. I remember when I was the head coach at Clark College in the summer, we'd do open play. All kids from all colleges would come and play with Clark guys. It was awesome. And Foster would run 5 miles from his house to Clark, train, play for 2 hours, and run 5 miles back. And that just tells you, I mean, the amount of work he put in to be in the position he's in is phenomenal. And hopefully that inspires some of you guys really during the summer months when you don't have school to put in the work to get to the level these three players are at. So that's one thing I remember about Foster. Niko.
Yeah, like Foster said, we would train together all the time. For me, it was after team practices is where I do more work. You already warmed up, and if I didn't feel like I got enough out of that, I live on a big hill. You know, my sisters and I used to run up and down the hill till it got pretty dark out. My dad probably pushed that a little bit. But yeah, no, what Benny
Niko
said.
was small too, so he had to work to be skillful to like defend off the bigger guys.
No, yeah. And another thing with me was hitting the gym. I knew ending high school and then going into college that physicality is going to be a lot different because you have freshmen playing against seniors and that big age gap. And so I wanted to go in as strong as I could. And going in as a freshman, I went in one of the strongest guys there. But like Bineam said with Foster, that guy's crazy. If he didn't have to sleep, I don't think he would. It's just constant workhorse. And I'm sure Brent's still not used to that now within that Reno. But yeah, Foster's just on a whole nother level.
Just to piggyback on that, you guys are at the level you're at. Do you think it's because of the extra work that you put in on your own or through the club practices, whatever, academy practices, or what set you apart from other players?
For me, I think that helped a lot because I think you can only get so much out of team practices, but what you do outside of that is really what's going to set you a little bit higher and a little bit higher, even if you don't see the results right away. I mean, I started that probably sophomore year high school, really doing everything on my own, and I didn't see myself really pass up guys until going into college, basically, when I was like, wow, I have an opportunity here.
And then this is just for the players. Feel free down in the chat below. Any questions you have for these guys as we go through, please don't be bashful. Chime in. This is kind of your show. I don't want to ask all the questions. So if you guys have questions, please write them down at the chat box below. Okay. Now we're going to transition more into college. Brent, why don't you start us off? Maybe just talk about your recruiting process for you, what that looked like, and then why did you choose UW?
So I think around my sophomore year, I created a list of a bunch of schools that I thought I might be interested in. And that was a bunch of D1 schools, a bunch of D2 schools, and then some D3 schools. I didn't know what I was going to be capable of in college-wise, so I wanted to, whatever I could do, I would do. And so I had all my bases covered there, and I was talking to as many schools as I could that I thought I would actually be interested in. And I kind of knew that I wanted to stay on the West Coast. I wanted to be at least sort of near my family, so I ended up only seriously considering a few Northwest schools and then a few California schools as well. And I decided on UW in the end because I knew some of the coaches there. They had been my coaches before in ODP, and then I knew several of the players going in as well. It was something that was comfortable for me. I didn't want to stay right in this Vancouver area. I didn't really want to go to University of Portland because I wanted to get a little bit farther than that, but not so far that I couldn't drive home for the weekend if I needed to. So UW was a perfect fit for me. It was really big, but it was great. I enjoyed the experience a lot, and it was good being that it was the first time out on my own, so I liked that a lot. It just brought about a whole different mindset to training and improving, so it was good.
Niko?
So I was actually verbally committed to UW as well. I was
Traitor.
Yeah, I was set up. Had my mindset on that school. But senior year high school, it was a late switch to Akron. I remember there was an academy, the first team with the Timbers, they would call a few guys in to skip school, which was a cool part, but to train with the first team. There was about 4 or 5 of us there, and it was just 11 aside scrimmage. And basically, I had a pretty decent showing, and the coaches were happy, and they asked me after where I was going to college and what I wanted to do if I wanted to pursue professionally. And so Caleb Porter was the coach for the Timbers then, and he used to coach at Akron before. So he actually said, "Let me get right back to you." Probably 10 minutes after training was over and I get in my car, I got a call from Akron. From there, just conversations went on and kind of switched routes there.
Niko is the best player in the academy, and Caleb Porter, he came from Akron to the Timbers, and so he funneled the best players to Akron, i.e. Niko. So
Thanks, boss. I don't know about that, but thanks.
Foster, why don't you tell us about your college recruiting experience and why you chose Stanford?
Yeah. I wanted to go to OSU really badly, but they didn't want me. And then UW, they didn't show a lot of interest either. So I started looking outside of kind of soccer and kind of thinking about what would challenge me in an academic setting as well. And I thought Stanford.
Women are funny. That's a good point.
That's a great lead up to this question I just got. So Foster, this is for you. Obviously, look at the career you've had in college, right? And you're having in pro, and you showed that you had to actually go out there and promote yourself, right? Can you elaborate on that process?
Yeah, I think I went to a lot of ID camps. Like I went to all the ones for colleges and D1 colleges in the Pacific Northwest, and I kind of put myself out there. And what was great about that was I got a lot of critique from coaches. Kind of they gave me advice on how to improve my game and what was deficient about it, what I needed to improve. Mainly, I remember the coach of OSU. He said I wasn't physical enough to play at the D1 level, and my skill level would be average. So I thought the best thing to do from then on would be to improve myself physically as much as I could. So that's when I really started getting into weightlifting, and then we crushed OSU. So it was a good feeling. So I think it was about just being open to critique. And that was the most important thing about going to all those camps and taking the coach's advice. As obviously don't take it personally, because everyone's going to have their opinion about you, but like some people might actually have something worthwhile to say. I learned that because I remember like when growing up, like there's a Rolling Stone article that came out about Kanye West when he was making his music. It's actually Seth Rogen said he sees Kanye West at this resort, and Kanye's like, hey, come into my car, like listen to my new album. Seth Rogen said he felt so special, but it turns out Kanye West was doing that to everybody he met. Like he was constantly trying to get a critique from people and like see what kind of like constructive criticism that he could gather from the people. So yeah, just being open and being coachable, I guess that's what it comes down to.
Awesome. Thank you. Question here from Kieran. What was the biggest challenge going from high school to college? What was the biggest difference for you guys?
I'd say for me, just physicality. Like I'd say it's similar to being like a freshman in high school and playing against seniors in high school. They're just going to be bigger, faster, stronger, and they're sometimes going to be more skilled than you. So it was the same thing. Whenever you go up a level, it's always going to be tough. I went to college and I felt like it was my senior year in high school. I was one of the better players on the team. And then I got to college and I don't feel like I'm very good here. Like it was one of the first times where I'm like, oh, I kind of suck compared to everybody else here. And so it wasn't me like putting my head down and being like, oh, this is dumb. Like, why am I not playing? But it was instead I said, well, what can I do to get better? And I think being put in those situations where you're playing with guys that are better than you, guys or girls that are better than you, that's how you improve. You're not going to get better if you're playing against people that you're already better against. So it's tough and it can wear in your confidence a little at times, but it's important to know that that's how you improve, is putting yourself in those situations where you're not the best player there.
Hey, Brent, what's your vertical leap?
Oh, I don't know anymore. I got to have a ball to jump at. I'm not actually good at the vertical leap tests. It's really not that high. I need to jump at a ball.
Also, Brent, you were the leading scorer at UW your freshman year. What are you talking about?
Yeah, they didn't have any good forwards there. So, but the first like few months of the season, I felt like an idiot. Like I was terrible. I lost every ball, and thankfully they didn't have many other options. So I got to play.
So Brent is known for his ability to score goals with his head. I mean, he scored at UW and Timbers, and he's phenomenal. He knows how to go get the ball, and he's, again, not the biggest guy, but athletically pretty talented and could jump. Niko, Foster, any of you guys want to address that? What was the biggest difficulties you had transitioning from high school to college soccer?
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off of Brent there. It's very humbling because, I mean, all three of us went to really good D1 schools. We were all kind of like the best at our position in our area, but then getting put into a situation where you come with that mindset like, okay, they know me. I'm the best at my position here in my county, in my state. But then me personally, I go in my freshman year and I don't start right away. And it's just mind games for me, just mind games for the first month or two. But then looking at it as a bigger picture, I mean, the guy that was starting over me was the captain of the U.S., U20 World Cup and all that. So it's just very humbling to see that, okay, I'm coming from here. I'm thinking I'm going to start right away. But then everyone else from their area, the top players from their area is all coming in all competing, and it's really just about humbling yourself and just working hard and being a team player there, and more of just focusing on the big goal and what the team really wants instead of what you really want.
Foster?
Yeah, I would say with every level you go to from high school to college to the pros, there's a jump in the baseline of what the average player is. So maybe in high school, it's probably you're physical, you can run fast, you're strong, you can like jump. That's great. And you're even better if you have a good touch on the ball. And then so you go from high school to college. You're physical in college, you have a decent touch on the ball. Those are the basic requirements. And then you go from college to the pros. And now you have to be physical. You have to have like a good touch on the ball and like basic average skill level, but you also have to have knowledge of the game. So I think like in each level you go up, and like Niko, Brent, and Bineam, you can like you can speak to this, but it's like what's expected to you obviously like raises because the average level of the player raises from a physical standpoint to like intellectual standpoint. So
Thank you. Just another question from the players. What was your most memorable game and why in college?
beating Niko,
No. Okay, no.
crushing him.
All right, no. It was 2017 College Cup semifinals. We played against Stanford.
Beating him twice in College Cup, probably.
Yeah, okay.
I loved it both times.
No, it was a very fun game though, because it was both of our senior year, last college game for both of us, and we actually had another guy that played with Foster there at Stanford, Stan Warner, and we all three grew up playing together with the Timbers Academy, and so just that being our last game in college, college weekend basically, whoever would win would move on to play another. But I just remember that game very emotional, and it was just a hard working game from both sides. And I remember actually I was marking Foster for a decent part of that game. Yeah, I should have been on him when he scored the first goal, but we had a little mess up in the back. But
It was inevitable.
yeah, it was a very, very fun game to be part of, and just to play against him in such a nice place.
Foster, you got one or memorable game?
You might have to go to Brent. I'll have to think on this.
Brent?
It's because Foster's won too many championships. There's too many great memories. I have great memories of beating Stanford, though. I actually wanted to go there as well before I committed to UW, and they said they weren't interested. They had a different forward they had coming in. So every time I played Stanford, I wanted to beat them. So we went down. I think we split about half and half, but it was always nice to beat Stanford at their field. So it's so nice there, and they get a decent crowd, and so the Stanford wins were fun.
Foster, I'll ask you a different question, Foster. What was it like for you as a freshman? This is more development. What was it like for you as a freshman to come in and then have Morris ahead of you to learn from him? And how was that relationship? How did you,
it was really beneficial because obviously like I was constantly like kind of pestering him to learn from him, and I'm not sure if like that was enjoyable for him the whole time, but I just like saw in my head and on the field that this is a guy that knows what he's doing. So while he's here playing, like I should learn as much as I can about him, and I was like lucky enough that he was willing to teach me some tips and give me some tips like for on the field stuff as well as off the field stuff. So
perfect, thank you. There's been several questions about mentality. You guys know being a college athlete and being a pro, there's a lot of stress that goes with it, right? What are some things that you guys do to not put so much stress on yourself as you're about to play a game or training, things like that? What do you do personally to kind of get over the hump of being too nervous to play? What tools do you guys use, if any?
So I answered this in the chat briefly, but I just think about past performances when I've done well. Like say I had a good game where I scored a goal or two and I felt really, really good in that game. I try and think about, okay, what did I do before that game and what did I do in that game that enabled me to be successful in those moments. So I try and pump myself up a little bit. I try and get a little bit confident and maybe not too overconfident, not too much, but I try and remember when I've done really, really well. And one thing that my high school coach, and Dan can talk about this, they probably did the same things. Like before every game, we would all turn out the lights in the locker room and he would play the same song before every game, and we would visualize what we were going to do in that game. For me, it was me visualizing a cross coming in and scoring a goal, or it was me going up for a header or doing a good play. And I would go through those same things in my head every time. So it got me into the right mindset for every game. And I still do it. I stopped doing it for a while, but I started doing it a few years ago, and I think it helps. I think it really does. And so you can be just like 3 minutes before a game, you just close your eyes, put in your headphones and listen to a song and visualize what you're going to do.
Niko Foster?
I think visualizing like that's a great thing to do. I remember I would do the same thing, and I would kind of like, I would have 3 things in my mind that I wanted to have control over. So I would tell myself I wanted to win headers. I would want to hold the ball up, and depending on the defense, I'd want to pressure the ball a certain way. So, and I would keep reminding myself of those things. Another thing I would do is I would kind of pay attention to my breathing. If it sounds ridiculous, but our sports psychologist called it a samurai breath. So it's like if you're ever going into like a big decision, like the people that mess up are going to be the ones that like are looking everywhere, are like kind of it's sensory overload for them. So like for instance, if you watch a guy in the NBA take a free throw, they always have like a routine about them. Like they'll get a ball and then they'll take a deep breath and then like they'll shoot it. And so for me, it was just always like, besides visualizing what I wanted to do well, it was just like taking a deep breath and trying to be as calm as I could before I entered the storm, because once like the whistle blows, you're really in it. So
Foster, I know you're reading about Jeremy Gunn and talking to you a little bit about him. He's all about that, right? Sports psychology.
Yeah, I mean, because it's those margins, right? It's like how like a penalty shootout is honestly 50-50 between 2 teams. It's a coin flip on who's going to win it. So if you can control like those little controllables in terms of like setting yourself, like preparing as well as you can, like thinking about where you're going to go before you take the kick, and just really like the point of you breathing is to center yourself and bring yourself into the moment, because you never want to play the moment. You want to just play the game.
How many PK shootouts have you guys won? And tell us your routine.
All of them. I can't tell the routine, but all of them.
Yeah, they beat us in 2015 with the PK shootout.
What was that, Niko?
They beat us in 2015 in the College Cup with the PK shootout. And going back at it, what Foster was saying, if you look at the shootout again, every one of our players, their walk-up was different than how we practiced. They went to different sides, and they just didn't look calm. And when Stanford went up to shoot, they were confident. And, I mean, they were spot on.
Yeah, as a coach, I dislike PKs. I don't even look in college. I just look the other way. But I'm gonna start doing the Stanford thing starting next year. I just read about that. See, obviously playing college soccer is a great honor, but also it's a lot of work. Can you, why don't we do this? Foster, give us what your soccer schedule looks like during soccer season. Like with class, what's a typical week? What's a typical day look like? And how do you manage that?
Yeah, a typical week, first of all, is you're playing 6 out of the 7 days and resting on the 7th and doing homework every single day. It's soccer and it's school every day. You like by coming up with a routine, like you're able to manage all of it, and by using the resources, whether it's the tutors and the athletic trainers, and maximizing like kind of what they can give to you. That's obviously important, but like I mean, it's no joke. Like you're a student athlete, you're expected to perform on the field regardless of what's going on off the field. Like whether if a girl's broken up with you or you just have a lot of homework, like you got to perform on the field at the end of the day. So I think like I mean everybody like it's definitely doable, and you get used to the routine of it. I would say it's tough. It's a tough question.
Niko, you want to elaborate on that? Like as far as in season, I mean, what does do you train in the morning? You got classes all day, you have video, you have weight room.
Yeah. So basically for me, all the guys, we all have different majors. Some majors require like more credits, more classes being taken that semester or whatnot. So each day could be a little different too. You won't have the same class every single day. So one day you could have 5 classes, 2 classes in the morning before training, meaning waking up at like 5:30 or 6, going to 2 classes for an hour each, and then having a 2-hour training, and then maybe shower real quick and then go straight to class again. Your day starts at 6 in the morning. You don't get back to your apartment or
We're
dorm
gonna take a shower.
until like 9 or 10 at night, and then the next day it could be a quick turnaround, and you have one class in the morning training, and then the rest of the day off. And it really just depends. You never know, but you just have to stay focused and kind of manage yourself there and create a little schedule for yourself.
Thank you. Staying with academics, somebody just wrote, how important is high school grades? What were the, Foster or Brent or Niko, if you didn't have the grades, would you have gotten into the school you did, even though you're a phenomenal player?
It's hard to say. I mean, my education was always something that was really important for me. And so I had good grades in high school. And so I was able to get into UW fairly easily. So and going back kind of on the last question, I'd say like what they were talking about, managing yourself. And it's just a balance. And like something that my college coach told me was that you need to balance 3 big things. And one of them is obviously soccer. The other one, your education, your academics. And the third part is the social aspect of it too. In college and in high school, you're growing a bunch of people and making friends. And that's a super important part. But if you're going too far in one of those directions and then maybe lacking in a little bit in another one, say you're really good at the soccer part, you're really good at the social part, you're making a ton of friends in college, but your grades are struggling, that's going to be a problem. If you don't have good enough grades, you're not going to be able to play. And it's the same in high school. If you don't have a certain GPA, you can't play. So it's just balance between all 3 of those things: the social, the soccer, and the grades. And so one thing that can really help you with that is your coaches, and then 2 is your advisors. Like most of the colleges have great academic advisors for everybody, and if it's not going well, go to them. That's their job. That's what they're there for you. So, and I think a lot of high schools have advisors as well. So make use of those. It's really important. And I would say that, yeah, right now, and if you're in high school or younger, your grades are super important. There's no reason not to try and get the best grades you can. Like, it can only open doors for you.
Really, I agree with that. I think you hit it spot on. Just talk a little bit more about high school grades. It's very important, especially if you're trying to get some sort of scholarship, or if you really want to go, if you have a school in mind and you're talking to them, but they don't have money. Because a lot of schools, every school, there's only a certain amount of money they can give out if you want to play on that team. And so your grades can really help you get academic scholarships to help you if you really want to go to that school. I know for me at Akron, the requirements weren't as high as Foster had it or Brent had it at their universities. I got in pretty easily and I got some money for grades. But I remember in academy, Foster would come up to training in the locker room and he'd be studying while he was walking in the room. And right when he would leave training, he had the big book, and him and Sam Warner were studying and talking about SAT and ACT scores the whole time. And just pretty.
He still does that.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, it's really important. And I think setting yourself up at that point in high school will make it a lot easier once you get to college to maintain that.
I know we have some younger players on here. Being a college coach and just being a youth coach as well, the biggest mistake we see is, and I'm sure Dan talks to you guys about this, Micaiah, is that 9th grade year, right? Because elementary, middle school, sometimes school is not perceived, the grades aren't important, and then you go from 8th grade to 9th grade. A lot of the kids I see are that 9th grade really screws them up, because it's hard to get your GPA up, but it's easy to get your GPA from 4.0 to 2.0 in 1 year. Does that make sense? But it'll take you 3 years to get that back up to 3.0. So it's important that transition year from middle school to high school, that freshman year, you really do a good job of maintaining grades and just taking care of business in the classroom. Another question that just came up, it was kind of answered earlier, but it was asked a couple of times. When did you guys know you wanted to pursue soccer? You knew you wanted to go be a college player, you wanted to be a pro. Did you know before high school, after high school? When did you guys decide this is what I'm going to pursue?
I knew in high school, actually. So going into, when was it? Can't remember the year, but I was actually just playing. It was right before Camas High School started the tryouts and stuff, and I wasn't really into it as much. I didn't know if I wanted to go play college soccer, try and be a professional. But this was actually right when Brent signed with Timbers. And I was talking to Coach Minder at Canis about it. And it was just kind of inspirational to see Brent signing as the first kind of homegrown. And from there on, it was like, wow. So I was just kind of looked at that and like, yeah, I could probably do that too. And then luckily I had some people around me that wanted the same thing. So just kind of push each other to do that.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that's interesting what Niko said as well about seeing like Brent kind of like setting the pathway and like setting the bar for the rest of the players in Vancouver, because obviously like you want to be as good as him, if not better, like the person setting that bar high. But I would say like, my goal was never to be pro. It was just to be the best player on my team, because I feel like you need to set kind of like attainable goals, and in the sense like you want to set process goals where you're able to work on those. Like I wouldn't say I want to be the fittest player. I would say like I want to get X score on the beep test. And by achieving that score in the beep test, I'm vis-a-vis the fittest player. So yeah, maybe that's a confusing answer, but it was just about like being the best I could be, and that goal of being pro and playing pro would take care of itself.
Yeah, I'd say I'd agree with that last part there. Like I just always loved soccer, and I couldn't get enough of it. I wasn't going out because I felt like I needed to do it to get better at this one thing. Like obviously that it helped, but I went out and played soccer as much as I could because I loved it. And and still is the biggest part of it for me. If you don't love it, then it's going to be harder, right? Like I didn't know that I was going to be able to play at UW or Division I soccer until like a year beforehand. Like I remember going to one tournament and thinking, God, I played terrible. Like there's no way I'm going to go to college now. I had one really bad game or had a bad tournament, and then I bounced back from it, and I did end up going to college. And then in college I had some good years and had some success, and so I started thinking, oh well, maybe I could go professional if I keep doing well. But it wasn't always like, it wasn't from like a very, very young age, I need to be a professional because that's something is the only thing that's going to be important to me. It was more about me just loving the game and improving with how much I loved it and how much I played.
Perfect. Another great question, I think, is Joey Angelo. What did you have to sacrifice off the field to get to where you're at with soccer? What kind of sacrifices did you have to make?
I don't think of things as sacrifices. You make choices. Like for instance, if it was between soccer practice and going to hang out with your friends, like going to the soccer practice over hanging out with your friend, it's not a sacrifice. You've chosen to choose soccer kind of over that hangout. So you've place being a better soccer player higher than you would socializing. And that's my take on it. Other people might have different takes, but from what I learned in college, like there's no such thing as a sacrifice. There's no such thing as a grind, because a grind means you don't like it. Like embrace the grind. It doesn't make sense. Like you should enjoy the process. That's how you're going to get the most out of it. And if you see it as a grind, like for instance, and a grind like pertains to sacrifice, then you're not, it's not going to be sustainable, and you're not going to be able to like do it to the point where you can achieve like the maximum out of it, whether you were to really like it. So yeah, I don't believe in sacrifices. I believe in choices.
Niko?
Yeah, I mostly agree with Foster there. Just kind of making a choice that's going to help you, or making a choice that you're happy with. Like he said, like you have one thing or this thing that's going to help you, or there's a point where like it's also a balance, like Brent said, with certain things. You don't want to cut everyone out and just focus on one thing the whole time, but everything you choose to do, there's going to be a good or a bad to everything. So just a balance of choices there.
Brent, you got anything?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I remember certain choices that I had to make when I was y'all's age, where I was like, well, shoot, I played baseball one year and I liked it. I don't like baseball now, but I remember my parents saying like, well, you can either play select or premier soccer or whatever it is, or you can play baseball. It's like you don't have enough time to do both. And thank goodness I didn't choose baseball because that was really boring. But I did have to make choices. And in the end, it wasn't a big sacrifice for me because I knew I loved soccer. But I would just say that put a lot of thought into the choices that you make or the choices that you have so that you're happy with them, I guess. And it's always easier in hindsight to say, oh, that wasn't a great choice or that was a good choice. And it's tough at times in the moment, but I'd say putting as much thought as possible into it is a good thing.
I remember, I don't know if you guys agree with this, but I remember my college coaches, and I use it as well, especially in season. You got, like Brent was talking about, you got your soccer, you got your education, and you got your social, right? And they always said you got to choose 2 out of the 3. It's hard to have a really social life and still perform in soccer, still perform in the classroom, right? So in season, I always stress on, these are your 2 focus. And then off season, obviously, your social life comes back a little bit more again. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Last question before we move on to your pro careers. Give us, it doesn't matter what level you play. Why, if players have the ability to play, why should they play college soccer? What made it memorable for you? It doesn't always have to be about winning trophies, winning games, but why was it memorable for you guys to play in college, and why should players pursue it, whether it be junior college, Division III, Division II, 1, it doesn't matter what level, but pursuing college sports?
Yeah, I think it's just a good way to basically grow up. You're on your own. You have some responsibility. You get to learn a lot about yourself, and at moments you're pushed, and then at other moments, you just realize certain things about yourself. Maybe you do college for 2 years and you don't like it, but you learn a lot about yourself there, and also networking, get to meet a lot of people, and you might try something new, just more about discovering yourself and what you really want and who you are.
Yeah, I guess I'd relate it back to those 3 things that I talked about earlier. As far as soccer goes, like it made me a better player going to college. Like I played with a bunch of great guys there and I improved a ton. And then on the academic side, like you obviously learn a bunch in college, like Niko said, about yourself and just in your education as well. You grow up a bunch. And then the third part of it, the social aspect, you meet a ton of new people in college. Like some of my best friends I met because I played college soccer. Like I talk to them on the phone every other week. So it's a good thing for, I think, many, many aspects of your life. And I recommend it highly.
Yeah, I would say the bond you end up developing with the guys that are in the same class as you that you go into college with is very important. I think of the guys who I played on the same team with as almost family, and people like who I'll go to their weddings because like you become close to them because it's not easy. Like, I mean, obviously it's a lot of fun to play, but it comes at a price. Like you're going to be benched, you're going to lose games, you're going to like be ran until you throw up. Like it like there's a price you pay for what you get out of it. But the good thing is, like I look back at it and it was all worth it. And I'm not so sure of the people I saw in college that they have the same bond as I did with my teammates, because I'm not so sure they went through the same things as we did. So that's what I really enjoyed about it, just the camaraderie about it.
Absolutely. It's called brotherhood, right? You battled with each other, and there's no great bond than the guys you spent 4 years with, right? And some of those guys are still some of my best friends, and players I played in club with I don't really keep track of a whole lot, but guys I played in college with, man, we try to connect all the time. If you could play, I would highly recommend, if you have the passion for it, right? You got to love it to play in college. You can't like it because it's a lot of work if you just like it and don't love it like these 3 guys. Now we're going to transition into players. You guys are asking a lot of great questions. Keep them coming. Now transition into pros. Now you transitioned from high school or academy to college, now from college to pro. What was the biggest difference?
Oh, it was a big transition for me. Like I said earlier, when I went from high school to college, it's always each step is huge. Like I got to the Timbers. I think I was 21 years old, and I was instantly the worst out of 30 guys on the team. I felt like, I think it took me over a month to even score a goal in training. It took that long. I felt like I was that bad on the team. And the coaches told me too, they're like, hey, you need to step it up. Like, we expect more from you. And I'd always been like one of the top guys on my team. So it was, going up a level is tough. And I took it for a few months. It was really hard, but then I started to get into it, and I started to improve, and that's when it really started getting to be fun. Like, you go into a training, and after training, you got these guys that are known around the world, and you say, hey, I scored more goals than him today. And it's a really, really good feeling. And then the fact that you came from, remember like my first day of professional practice when I felt like I was really, really terrible. And it's like, oh, I think I've moved up now. And you start getting into the 18, you maybe get a few games in. It does a lot for your confidence. And it's a really, really special feeling to do that.
Foster, Niko, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. I think, from college to the pros, the first year, it's just a major test to your mentality. That jump to college to pros is like, okay, everyone there I'm playing with and competing against is, this is their job. This is how they, at the end of the day, how they feed their families. So no one, once you step on that field to train or play, no one really cares about your feelings, I guess you can say. And you're going to be tested to the max. And it's all about how you can handle that mentally. And you do get tougher mentally. And a lot of coaches say the word mentality. And that's a huge thing to start looking into now at a good age, because that's a big part of the future, especially professionally. If you're not, they're paying you to, basically win. And that at the end of the day, that's what they care about. So if you can't do what you're asked, then they can just find someone else. So just being mentally ready for that and having confidence in yourself to do that, because, Brent was picked for a reason, Foster was picked for a reason, I was picked for a reason. If someone sees something in you, then take that as a cue of, okay, I can do what they want. I just have to have confidence in myself to do it the best I can, as much as I can.
Yeah, I think everything Niko and Brent have said is spot on. Obviously, when you go into the pros, I think there's a lot less camaraderie because it's a business. They're looking for the best players, whereas in college, like there is a lot more camaraderie because you're seeing the guys not only on the field, but you're hanging out with them a lot off the field. And in college, I remember like if it were like a tough practice, or if I really did like want to do well, I could like maybe post up on a freshman and small sided and kind of just outbody him, or like go for someone that had a bad touch. But in the pros, there's no hiding. Everybody is really damn good. So you have to have kind of an aspect to your game that separates you from the rest of the pack, something you can do that no one else really can.
I really liked the part that Niko was talking about with the mentality piece. And somebody asked earlier, I want to relate this back to an older question about how much talent we had when we were your guys' age. And yeah, we had talent and we still have talent, but I would say that I'm in my 9th year as a professional, and it's not because of my talent. I would say I've lasted this long as a professional because of my mentality. Exactly what Niko was saying. Like, I've played with plenty of other players that had loads more talent than me, but I could tell that their mentality wasn't there. They didn't want to do the hard work. They just wanted all the glory. They had only sights for being, oh, I'm the best and I have all this talent and that's going to be enough. I don't have to work hard. And I don't subscribe to that mentality. I've always been, Foster and I joke about it, we're team try hard. We try hard every day, every second of training, every game. And that's why I've stayed in the game so long, is because it's not good enough for me personally to not give my best every time. And like, you hear that all the time. You hear that a bunch of people say that, but it's true. I would not have lasted in this game as long as I have if I wasn't willing to work. Even if I'm losing 5-0, I'm still going to try as hard as I can to get back to even. Like, I don't give up. And I think that's what makes the difference between a good player and a great player.
Yeah, just going off that real quick again, at Akron, above my locker, it was a quote. I'm sure all the locker rooms have this in college, but they have quotes around it. And on mine, it was hard work beats talent, and talent doesn't work hard. And it's just something to think about, because your mentality and your hard work is going to outbeat anyone that's more talented than you that isn't working.
Thank you, guys. Just Brent, you touched up on that. Can you elaborate? I mean, did you do anything to work on your mentality? Did you read books? Did you sports psychology? Or was it just something you did on your own? Or did you have to develop that? I know you talked a little bit about it earlier.
I think one thing that I've always remembered from when I was, I think, around 14 years old, I had a coach who is actually at the Timbers now that told me, you should be so upset to lose every time. You like, and I know that's not probably what you want to hear, but like losing, like he told us that he was playing for the Timbers at the time, and he was saying, every time I lose, it upsets me. It ruins the rest of my day. And I thought about that. It didn't really resonate with me, but it made sense to me. It made sense that that's how hard you have to be wanting to win and to do well to be successful. You have to make winning that important to you and doing well, not necessarily winning, but giving your best that important to you. If you don't work as hard as you can every time, then you don't get to complain at the end of the day if you lose. Like if you say, oh, we lost today, and if you can look at yourself honestly in the mirror and say, yeah, but I gave my best effort, then it should be okay. It's not okay if you go out there and you say, oh, well, I lost and I didn't try my hardest. Then that falls entirely on you. And there's something more you could have done. And I guess that's something that I've not been okay with personally for me. Like it's just not good enough to not give my best every time. I don't know why that is. I don't know what point in my playing career that developed, but I guess that's something that's been important to me for a long time.
Yeah, I think there's something about like knowing what's in your control versus what's out of your control. Things that are in your control that come to my mind are your attitude and how hard you're going to work. And I mean, I'm sure there are some other things like preparation, like hydration, dieting, and all that. But like those are the two things that come to my mind. I mean, if I go and like, I've helped coach a little bit in Vancouver, and it really just pisses me off when you have kids come in the practice and they're not paying attention or they're not working hard. Because then it's like you're ruining this practice for not only yourself, but you've now lowered the level for the person who's competing against you. And please leave. So I think keeping in mind how hard you're going to work, how much of your focus how much attention you're going to give to the practice, and your attitude that's in your control. And so there's no excuse for why you can't give it up, for why you can't apply yourselves in those aspects as much as you can.
Perfect. A couple of questions I was asked about what's your typical schedule look like as a pro? Is it 2 hours of soccer and you're done for the rest of the day? Or what does it look like? Foster, when you were with the Timbers, what did your schedule look like?
So I'd wake up, drive an hour from Vancouver through traffic to get to Beaverton. I'd train, and then I'd get done with training. And I thought I was the worst player on the team at the time, so I needed to be working the hardest. So normally I'd stay and ask an assistant coach or the right back, Moreta. He would I would trying to ask all the veterans if I could be kind of like a dummy for them. For instance, Moreta, he's the right back. He was really good at crossing, and he'd constantly work at that. And he couldn't speak any English, but I would constantly kind of with Jordan Morris back at Stanford, I'd just pester him to be like, hey, do this, it'll be good for you and it'll be good for me. So, because I'll finish the crosses. So it was constantly trying to learn from people again. So after practice, I would just do a little extra work because again, what we were talking about earlier in this, if you're just doing what everybody else is doing on your team, you're going to improve at the same rate as them. So you need to add something else to your repertoire so you can improve at a faster rate, so you can be better than your teammates. So, which is at the end of the day, everyone's goal.
And then just to continue with that. So do you guys, videos, weight room on top of the soccer, right, Foster? Would that?
Yeah. But I mean, where I was lacking was on the field. So that's where I paid the most of my attention to improving my finishing. Obviously, besides just eating right, making sure I was getting 8 hours of sleep, I was trying to focus on what my weak points were from the feedback I was getting from the coaches, and then address those weak points every single day.
Brent, what would a typical practice for you be, or a day with Reno?
Usually get in if we have practice at say 10 o'clock in the morning, and get in at around 8:30 and go in, do a foam roll, stretch, make sure my body's ready, and then out to training. And it depends on the day. We usually get one day off a week. So some day, our Mondays and our Tuesday trainings are pretty tough since they're the farthest away from game day. So those trainings can last anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours, sometimes more. But then the lighter days will only be around an hour sometimes. And then you'll have weight training usually around 2 days a week during the season, usually Tuesdays or Thursdays, maybe Mondays or Wednesdays. And then usually done by 2:00 most days. In Reno, we did a ton of video. We would do video just about every day of the and say you come in on Monday, you go over the video from last Saturday's game. You say, hey, here's some of our good clips, here are some of our bad clips, and how can we fix those? Tuesday's kind of the same thing. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're going over video of the team you're about to play for the next week. And usually it's the coach that had picked a few clips that he wants the guys to see. He's like, hey, this is what this team does consistently. This is how maybe a spot where we can make them vulnerable and get them here. So we watch a lot of video in Reno, and it's not usually more than a half an hour at a time, because then guys start to lose focus. But we watch it just about every day, and it's something that's improved my game for sure. And I think if you'll get out of it what you put into it. If you pay attention to it and really try and pay attention and learn from it, then you definitely can.
Niko, you got anything you want to add to that? How about when you were with the Red Bulls?
Yeah.
What did your practice schedule look like?
So we would train at 10:30 every day in the morning, and so it would be basically just getting to the facility an hour and a half before training. If you want breakfast, it's there for you. If not, just basically, like Brent said, get yourself warmed up and ready to go. We did film beforehand, before training, and that would probably be about 45 minutes, and that was every day. Film is huge for a lot of clubs, and there was a question about how much film do you watch on your opponent, and you watch a lot of film on your opponents. At the end of the day, you need to win that game. And the trainings the day before a game or 2 days before a game, even that week before a big game, it's all training to lead up to that game to win. And so not only are you watching video on your opponents, your trainings are fitted to the style of play you want to play that game, and the strengths and weaknesses of your opponent as well.
Perfect. Thank you. What advice would you give players in our club as far as if they're trying to aspire to play in college or to be a pro after college? Before we kind of getting ready to wrap it up, what advice would you give them if they want to pursue what you guys have gone through?
For me, just thinking about when I was your age, I tried to do as much as I could, and I loved all of it. I loved playing, and it never felt like I was getting tired of it. And I know that's different from person to person. So maybe it's not for you if you find yourself constantly dreading going out and practicing or going out and playing, then yeah, I can see how that would be tough. But it was never like that for me. It was always, I want to go out, even if it's just kicking by myself in a park. I loved that. And so that's what was most important to me. I loved it, and I still love it. I know guys that I play with now that don't love the sport anymore, and they're just playing it because they're good at it and they can make money doing it. And that makes me sad, because I still love it. I still love going out and playing. So love of the sport is the biggest thing for me.
I would say not comparing yourself to other people. I mean, every player is different. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. So if you see something that one person's doing and they're kind of, you're like idolizing them, or you're like, wow, they scored a goal and they've been doing this. So like, don't follow and do every single thing. Like for me, I didn't do every single thing Foster did. It was more of whenever we did train together, we'd help each other. I know before I got injured, we went to the field and we did a lot of things crossing for him. One thing he really wanted to work on for the next season, so he can, beat because the year before he had a record for that team of goals scored, and he wanted to, make himself better. So he wanted to work on something. And me, obviously, I'm the defender. I'm not going to work on scoring goals. I have other things I want to work on. So just not comparing yourself to other people, and not doing every single thing they're doing. Just finding what works for you, basically, at the end of the day. Just find what works for you and what's going to help. And going off what Brent said a little bit, with me, I need a little break sometimes from soccer. Like growing up in high school or in college, high school, I never watched film really. And in college, it was a big adjustment. And so there were some days where I was just like, I needed a little break. I wasn't going to watch any games on the weekend. I just needed like a few days where I was just kind of doing my own thing for a little bit, just so I can get that love back and that drive back to, okay, I took a few days off. Now I really want to attack.
I would say three things. The first being to come up with process goals versus goals. So the difference between that, a silly goal is to say, I want to have a good touch. that doesn't make sense. A process goal is I want to get 1,000 touches on the ball a day. That process goal leads to the goal of, so the process goal of getting 1,000 touches a day leads to the goal of having a good touch. So that's my first piece of advice. My second is be challenge seeking. We know Brent, for instance, had an older brother and he got his butt kicked and by training with these guys, but ultimately it made him better. So be challenge seeking. And then my third piece of advice is to be coachable and be open to critique, like just listening to it, whether you agree with it or not, like, and just don't take it personally, but at least like listen to it to see if there's any validity to it. Those are my 3 ideas.
Thank you, guys. Here's a last question before we end it. Which professional player had the most impact on you, Messi or Ronaldo?
Brent did.
I'm neither of those. I would say Messi. I like at least how he presents himself. It seems like he's a team first kind of guy, and Ronaldo is obviously an incredible player, and you give him credit for that. But I see how he scores a goal, he points at himself. Messi scored a goal, he points at his teammate who helped set him up. So I like that part of Messi.
Nico, you look like you're asleep.
No, I'm good. I don't know. That's a hard one for me. I'm not really a fan of either, but I like Messi on the more humble side, but I also like Ronaldo for, I don't know, just being really hardworking. Outside of, I relate myself to him a little bit in the way that more like to himself and just focuses on himself, and just kind of puts himself out there as a guy that, you never really see him hanging out with teammates that much. It's more of doing individual workouts and trying to make himself better every day.
Foster, you got one besides Brent?
I like Ronaldo because he challenged himself by playing in La Liga, the Premier League, and now the how do you say the Italian league? What's that? And okay, and that league. So you have to respect that, but on the other end of the spectrum, like Messi seems much more like a team player and like a God-given talent. So it's hard to choose one over the other.
Gotta admire Cristiano's work rate, though. He's team try hard. Love that.
He is.
With abilities, though, right? Hey, first of all, to our players, really, this was an awesome turnout. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to come listen to these 3 great players. I hope you picked up 1, 2, 3 things that you could carry on with you that will help you to continue grow as players. Not just players, but also good human beings. And these 3 guys are great players, but also great people. And that's kind of what this club is trying to do, is create good players, but also great human beings. And hopefully you guys got something out of this. I know you did. 3 players, Brent, Foster, Niko. We really appreciate you guys taking the time and share your wisdom with us and with the players. Anytime you guys are in Vancouver, we want you at Harmony. Please continue to stay in touch with us. And hopefully your guys' season gets going here in middle of June, sooner than later.
Yeah, Bineam, real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for all the players, all 3 of us grew up around here and we're in your shoes playing at all the same places you're playing at. So, even your coaches, Robin, Coach Dan, we all know them personally. So if you guys ever have questions, players, you can feel free to, reach out to them with questions to shoot on over to us, or, we're all on social media as well. You just shoot a message, and we're all quarantined, so we have a little bit of time. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having us, guys.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. And then the 3 players, good luck. We'll all be in touch with you guys as well. Take care, Foster, Niko, and Brent.
Alrighty. See ya.
See ya.
Thanks, guys. Ending the meeting now. Hope everybody's safe and healthy at home. See you soon.